May 4th, yes, 2015 at 1:30. I remember exactly when it happened. Just recently celebrated.
And what was that like? I mean, for someone who, has never experienced a stroke, do you remember anything from that?
I remember actually a lot. The night before, my wife and I were coming back from Wisconsin visiting family, so it was just a long trip, 9-hour drive, and I was worn out after that night, and we had a long day at school since it was Monday, and school's almost over, so the kids were crazy. So I felt fine. I just felt very tired all day, but I just thought it was the trip that we did. Around, I'd say 1:20, I started getting numbness in my left hand. My last three fingers, I just started feeling, they started feeling numb, and I started pinching them. I even bit them, and I couldn't feel anything. It just felt weird. And my kids started saying, "Mr. Russell, you sound funny," because I was teaching math at the time. And I said, "I know. Let me get some water." So I went behind the desk and I got a glass of water, and I walked back up to the room, and water started coming out of my mouth, coming out of the side of my mouth whenever I was talking. And they said, "Mr. Russell, you're spitting water." I said, I know. Let me go back to my desk and sit down for a while. I don't feel right." And that's when the tingling started coming up my arm, and then my leg started becoming numb. I sat down, or I attempted to sit down, and I fell out of my chair. The kids thought I was joking because I mess around with my kids a lot and joke around with them. So they were just, Mr. Russell, get up. You're not funny, blah, blah, blah." And I said, I think my leg's asleep the best that I could. I started really mumbling and stuff. The water started coming out of my mouth even more. And they said, "Do you want us to get the nurse?" And I said, No, I think my leg's just asleep. And I had three kids come, and three boys try to get me up, and I was dead weight. I couldn't move. They couldn't move me. And it was at that point I was getting scared. I also have a history of I have heart disease. I have a heart disease called HCM, hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. So at first, since it was my left arm, I thought I was having a heart attack. But then in my mind, I'm thinking about the slurred speech and everything, and I'm like, oh my gosh, maybe I'm having a stroke. But my grandfather had a stroke. I just didn't think I'm old enough to do that, to have one of those. And so my kids finally got the nurse, and I'm on the ground, and I'm constantly just trying to keep my eyes open because my eyes then wanted to just close. And I was losing energy and everything. And the nurse came in and started to check everything, and she told me, "You're having a stroke." And that's when it hit me very hard. And I just tried to remember everything, because anything I've ever heard about a stroke is you forget things, you lose your memory. My grandpa had a stroke when he was probably late 70s, and he died a week later. And whenever I came to visit him with my mom, the last memory I had was he couldn't remember me. He couldn't remember my name. So I started to say my wife's name. I started to say my dad, my brother, my mom, just so I could remember, because that's all I could remember in my head about a stroke is they lose their memory. I started trying to remember my phone number because Mr. Trillo was asking, our principal was asking, "Do you want me to call your wife? Where's your phone?" And I'm trying to remember all this stuff. All the while my kids are in the room.
Yeah.
So I'm scared to death about what they are thinking, what they are feeling, what they are seeing. I know they finally got them out of there once the ambulance came, which luckily we have the cops and I think a fire station just up the road from here in Shiloh. And they came up and got me and went to the back door. Luckily I'm at the room in the very end of the building. So they grabbed me and got me out of there. But that whole time, after the nurse said that I'm having a stroke, I was just scared out of my mind that I was going to die right there on the floor. Okay, so all we're doing is putting pre in front of every single one of these words. So if you look here, prearrange, precaution, premature. So pre-cook, certain and greater than 0. So what's greater than 0? I'll give you a hint. It's not a number. So if you're looking on here, what would be greater than 0?